Welcome, folks. Welcome to another very exciting episode of Access Granted, which is our identity and access security podcast, where we talk about new trends, customer case studies, lessons learned, what's happening in the industry, and we always learn from experts who have been either doing the security posture development in a customer environment or helping customers consult with the knowledge and experience. So today we are actually very lucky to have a very seasoned principal architect, Shahzad Ali, on the show here. And we will be talking about many different things, specifically talking about identity, security, and how it bleeds into the world of network and security devices, which is something a little bit different than usually what we talk about. But before we move on, Shahzad, welcome to the show. Maybe you can also share some of your intro to the audience here.
Thank you, Nauman. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so my name is Shahzad Ali. I'm based out of Bay Area, California. And my professional experience has been all in networking and security, very heavy on security. I started my career in Cisco. I spent about 14 years in Cisco working on different security technologies. The PIX firewall, the ASA firewall, that's what Cisco used to have, and I used to support that. I had a chance to work with very large enterprises and implemented their networking and security stack and designed a very complex network for them. After that, I moved into VMware as an NSX security solutions architect. Again, was responsible for microsegmentation, guest introspection. Very large enterprises, again, had a chance to work with them, solve their very complex security issues. After that, I moved into a multi-cloud networking company called Aviatics, and I was supporting their firewall network, FireNet, their microsegmentation solution for the cloud-savvy customer. And if you see, the industry is also evolving. So before it was on-premise, and now it's cloud, right? So then I realized that there is a serious issue that we have in the industry where the identity is being compromised a lot. And that's the reason actually I joined Britive, to help my customers what I have learned and solve their pain points.
That's fantastic, Shahzad. Really good to have you on the show with your vast experience across the board. I think your insights would be extremely useful on the show here. So today, I think we are going to focus more on identity security. We're going to talk about how we can do specifically privilege access security, dynamic trust security across the board in a multi-cloud hybrid environment. But before we dig deeper, identity is almost like a firewall now. Identity, just like you have network firewalls, with especially the cloud and multi-cloud hybrid world, identity is becoming that new firewall. But in your experience, how has the definition of this just-in-time and privilege access have evolved, specifically with the rise of cloud-native environments and hybrid environments? How it has evolved over time?
So basically, if you look at the privilege access definition, the legacy definition, it was about protecting the admin accounts, admin users. And that was okay with the centralized system that we used to have, the on-premise servers and hardware that we used to have, where everything was actually housed inside a data center or inside a fixed parameter. But there is no parameter. It's all distributed, right? So the definition of privilege access is also changed. It's no longer about the admin logging into a system and protecting it. Now the privilege access touches the API, the agentic AI, the automation. The workload themselves are ephemeral. We used to have physical server, which will be sitting there, and then that's what you need to protect. Now it's all distributed. Now this is a world of Kubernetes. This is a world of serverless, where you don't even have a server. So it's about protecting that code, right? And your workforce also is changed now. So your workforce also has access to some critical systems where they can make those changes. So those static credentials and legacy vault type automation techniques, they cannot keep up with this new definition of privilege access management, which is a combination of the APIs, the automation, the ephemeral workload, and accessing those in a distributed fashion. So this is exactly the reason you see solutions like Britive are extremely important and necessary, because they actually are the one who were born in the cloud for the cloud workload. They are providing the just-in-time, the identity-driven access And they are actually built for this dynamic world.
Great. So, how do you define? Because there are a lot of vendors who are even in a traditional world, they also do that. They do just in time. Obviously, the modern vendors have their own definition of just in time. I think Carter is also coming out with a more updated modern version of what they call just in time. So, how do you define for the audience? How do you make it simple in terms of what was the old legacy way of doing just in time versus how it should be considered now, which is more secure in nature?
So if we look at the traditional PAM tool models, they were built around the concept of vault. So their center of gravity was the vault. Their center of gravity was rotating the password, giving you the new password that you can use and log into these critical systems.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that was a very traditional approach, and that does not work in the modern world. So what happens with that approach is that you still have static privileges or standing privileges or permissions in your systems. For example, Active Directory is a very common use case that I see day in, day out. You have Active Directory group.
Mm-hmm.
The Active Directory admin user is always part of that group. You're just rotating the password and giving access to this person to log into Active Directory as a domain admin. That is bad. That is really bad, because if that password is compromised, then you have that person that can actually, and that can actually compromise your critical system. So that is the old school approach, which is based on the vaulting system. It's like my friend gave me the key. I remember once, and he was traveling, and he said, Shahzad, can you take care of my mail? Can you take care of the cat? Can you feed it? And then he gave me the key. He had a duplicate key, and then he forgot. Now I have his key, right? So that's like a standing permission versus a model where he could have given me a temporary code for the door lock for a day or 2 day, right? And then I would just, go and then feed the cat and come back, and that's it. It's like another example, good example I see, which is the virtual credit card.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time you are filling this information on the website. You are worried about the protection of your physical card and your number, which is always there. Instead of that, why not we should use the virtual card, which can be expired after 3-4 days. So that's the model we need. We don't need this vaulting based techniques. We need a true zero standing privilege model, the ZSP model, and that is what not provided by the old school legacy PAM tools.
Understand. So thanks for breaking it down. So I feel that what you're saying is okay in the old world, in the old world of on-prem data centers where everything was fixed and the fixed servers and how you log into the system is all very deterministic. It was, and the vault approach was the mainstream approach. It was the trend back in the day. But what has changed in the modern world, and what would be the new definition of just in time, right? And what is enabling that new approach of doing just in time? So maybe you can share a little bit that how all of a sudden you now have a new definition and what technology innovation has enabled this just in time way of doing it.
Zero standing privileges is the foundation, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to go towards the modern solution, the ZSP is the way to go. Now, ZSP has to be coupled with just in time. So basically, what it means that nobody has privilege access to anything. You have your AWS Lambda, you have your EC2s, you have S3 buckets. No one has access to anything until explicitly you grant that access, and it should be on the ephemeral basis, the temporary basis. And that is what a true PAM should look like. And I call it cloud PAM, the cloud-based PAM, because it has to be delivered as a SaaS solution. Why? Because, like I said, the world is distributed. These services are being born and destroyed, right? So your PAM solution should also cater for that type of a use case where your access should also be granted only for the just-in-time basis when these services exist or when you need to get to them access, and after that they should be expired. So that is what I would call a true ZSP and just-in-time access model. And by the way, one thing I would add is that this just-in-time keyword or phrase is being misused a lot. This legacy PAM vendor, they call password rotation just in time, and they claim that we are also just in time ZSP solution. The problem is that they're not, because it's a vault based system. They still have standing permissions of privileges, and they're just providing this one-time password and calling it a ZSP solution or just-in-time solution.
Understand. So if we basically are saying that what used to be the more innovative way of doing it back in the day, which was a vault approach and password rotation approach, that's basically is not optimal for the modern cloud world. And now we are going towards this zero standing privilege model. How are we not using the vault approach, and is it basically because of the APIs and the cloud native capabilities which now the modern players are able to leverage and tap into to provide just in time? So what's the new approach? If you're not using the vault approach, how do you actually make that possible?
Yeah. So the new approach is all API based. First of all, it's an API driven world. It's an API based approach that you need to adopt. And the approach is basically is to set up the system or provide the access when you need to have access to S3 bucket, for example, right? So I work with a lot of customers. I see their use case day in, day out, where they have this standing permission for S3 bucket. And I'm, as an S3 admin, can anytime log into S3 bucket and get access to it. And beyond that, I have access to other services as well, which I should not, like EC2 or Lambda and whatnot, right? So the point is that when you are providing this type of access to your critical system, the access should be given based on the API, first of all cloud native. It should not be based on the vault, the agents or proxies. And that's what I also see. That's how people are actually providing this access. They install the agent into some system or some service, and they use the agent to provide you this just-in-time access or privilege access to certain systems. That is not the way to deal with this. Another case is the proxy case. I see this a lot where customers, they have a centralized proxy. Everything is actually going through this proxy. And I said, this is a legacy traditional model. It was working for the centralized world we used to live in, the on-premise physical world we used to live in. Not anymore, because this is actually creating a choke point. If you look at the workload, they are actually distributed across multiple clouds, SaaS location, Snowflake, Salesforce, and also hybrid locations. So you need a layer, a common policy model, which is API driven, that you can use to program these resources and provide a true zero standing privilege model with just-in-time permissions.
Fantastic. That's great articulation. Now, I think it's maybe because of this angle, right? Because of all these breaches that are happening, because of these static credentials, specifically in the cloud world where things are more open, because being in the flat architecture, internet next to the workloads in each VPC, a lot of people can access your public IPs from different sources. Is this the reason why identity in general and access is becoming the key pillar of cybersecurity? Because at one point it used to be just an administrative function, right? You have a join the mover lever scenario, you're hired into an organization and you add that user at the role, and it was not really seen as a cybersecurity. But because of these breaches that are happening, is this the reason why it's becoming the key pillar? And what are some of the things you're seeing in general? How cybersecurity teams are now looking at it, or CISOs?
Absolutely. We have to look at it from a very different angle. The identity is becoming the new parameter. It is the new parameter. People used to call the firewall as the parameter. That's not the case. You said it right. Basically, these attacks are on the rise. And there are new types of attack: the ransomware attack, insider threat, supply chain attack. And they are actually making it really complex for the admins and the teams to basically provide the secure access or privileged access to those type of resources, right? So the controlling who can access what and for how long is now the foundation of security. And I will actually take it one step further, is that people, when they talk about the privileged access management, it should not be based on one large service. Like I have access to AWS as an admin, or I have access to AWS as an operator. No, it should be granular. It should be granular down to the bucket level, S3 bucket level. And it should be time based, and it should also be auditable. And people actually forget that. If you look at, for example, the Britive platform, it's basically providing you not only the privileged access management, but you also have all the tool set to completely see what's happening when someone is trying to get access to a resource. There are reports that you need to provide to your compliance team, your governance team. That is also something that is built into the platform. So customer, when I talk to them, they are actually worried about this tool sprawl. And if you look at the legacy players, they have one tool for the on-premise, another tool for the reporting, a third tool for the cloud, and the fourth tool for the Kubernetes workload, because that's completely different ball game. So you need to have a solution from the identity perspective that is also catering to all these requirements under one single umbrella, sort of a single pane of glass, to not only provision, program, but also automate, operate for humans and non-humans, right? Because a lot of times we forget about this non-human element, and if you see this non-human element, it's on the rise. So that is the reason I would say this identity is a center of gravity when it comes to providing the cybersecurity for your critical assets.
That's great. Fantastic. No, I think the non-human identities, specifically, everybody's talking about agentic AI workflows these days, which obviously the majority of the actions are being taken by these bots and workflows. The importance of securing the access from system to system or user to system is become critical. It's become critical because we are moving fast ahead with these innovations. But if we don't keep security in mind, as they say, right, the trust is earned and revoked in milliseconds. So you might be the best organization, you might be working on the best innovative projects in AI or in general, but if you don't take care of security and if it gets breached, then you can get your trust and reputation revoked in milliseconds. Moving on, so many organizations, so let's come to a little bit on the infrastructure side. We talk about mostly on the cloud, resources, entitlements, databases, but many organizations have matured their or are in the process of maturing their cloud IAM practices, but they are still exposed at the network and server layer. What do you think that why do you think the gap exists? What is the reason? And maybe you can offer some guidance around what the teams or leaders should be thinking about securing their network and infrastructure layer also the same way as they're trying to do their resources and entitlements in the cloud world.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it's actually close to my heart because I came from this background, the infrastructure background, in providing the security for very large enterprises. And what I have seen is that cloud IAM got the early attention because people were close to the application. This is where the developer started the whole cloud momentum. They started building the applications. They had the credit card. They did not want to basically stop themselves from deploying the applications quickly. So they swiped the credit card. They started using the cloud basically. And that's the reason that got the early attention. There were too many breaches happening in that space, in the application space. So people actually forgot about the infrastructure layer, the networking layer, right? That's the foundation and core, right? But now if you look at the new type of attacks, for example, the Salt iPhone is a prime example where the hackers or attackers basically they compromise the networking infrastructure by gaining access to routers and switches, and they actually penetrated into the system and they ran very sophisticated type of attacks. So I would say that was the reason and the gap that was created. But the good news is that Britive actually saw that coming. When it was formed, it was actually formed not only to solve the issues, only the application space or server space or Linux space issues, but also the issues that would arise in future from this infrastructure point of view, from networking, from routers and the firewalls, right? So I would say that was the reason. But now the good news is that Britive is here to solve these problems because the common policy model and the framework that we provide allows our customers to control not only the Linux servers, the Windows servers, the S3 bucket, the Snowflake or Salesforce of the world, but also the routers and switches and firewalls with the same policy model, with the zero standing permissions and with just-in-time access.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. And I think, as they say, that the best privilege is the one that does not exist when you don't need it. And if you are able to extend that now to a network device, to a firewall, to a router, to a storage locations, and to your IoT devices, it's just completely changed the spectrum of how much you can secure with a unified platform and in a unified way across same policy model. So maybe is there a way to show a quick demo or a glimpse of how it looks like, what is mean by ZSP for network devices, so the people can understand and try to adopt?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna share my screen quickly here so you can see. So let me show you a quick demo of how you can actually protect the infrastructure and critical assets beyond your S3 buckets or cloud services.
Okay.
And the Salt Typhoon is a great example where you see hackers, they ran a very sophisticated scheme to attack the network infrastructure. And with the help of Britive, what an enterprise should do is also protect their routers and switches and firewall, their storage devices. So what I have here is Britive user interface. And as you can see, I have this example BIOS router. Now, what I'm going to do right now, I don't even have access to this router. If I want to log in, I would not have any access to this router. What I can do, I can actually get the permissions on the temporary basis. So when I click checkout here, what it's going to do now, Britive is going to talk to the router and it will have me added to the admin group on the temporary basis, only 14 minutes. Now I have 14 minutes to perform this admin activity.
I see.
And once my activity is done, I will automatically get, my access will be revoked basically. Or I can actually check in this permission. Yeah.
That's amazing. I can already see a lot of risk reduction because based on certain breaches I've seen in the past, where able to get access or admin access or root access to a certain control plane or control manager of a network infrastructure or software defined infrastructure platform, and are able to do bad things, right? So you can actually don't have any standing root access, admin access, router access, firewall access, and just get it checked out just in time, in a way.
Exactly. And once my job is done, I'm done with the router config, whatever I wanted to do, I can just check back in. And everything that I have done so far is completely logged. So you, as an admin or as an operator, would have complete visibility into what I have done, what access I got, and how much time I spent on that resource. So that's something you can also provide to your auditor.
That's great. That's great.
I just showed you the example from the reverse router perspective, but you can actually apply it to your Cisco router, your Juniper router, or your NetApp firewall, or like you said, the IoT devices. The solution is so extensible that it can cater pretty much all the needs to protect your critical assets with a single policy framework, with a single SaaS-based platform.
So I think we covered quite a bit around, what is the modern definition of just-in-time, ephemeral access, zero standing privileges. What does it mean? How they are different from the old world of vaulted solutions, which was good, which was great, 10 years ago. But now with this modern cloud, multi-cloud hybrid world, and the ability for CSPs to allow vendors to leverage the native APIs where you can get granular access. I think we talked about that. We talked about, network infrastructure. We talked about machine learning and AI, how non-human identities are also part of this infrastructure. And it's great to hear that Britive can actually manage both human and non-human identities, which are becoming quite evident in in the modern world of agentic workflows, whether it's GitHub talking to Snowflake or S3 bucket or Lambda services or SageMakers of the world. So it's I think we covered quite extensively. And I think we are also running short on time now. But before we want to check out from here, one of the things I wanted to find out is, if you want to give an advice to a leader to a leader, a network infrastructure leader, cloud security leader, CISO leader. So assume that they have a magic wand. What is one advice or one thing that you want them to fix from a security perspective, or what a security mistake that is happening today that you want them to avoid? What would that be?
So, Nauman, you actually use the phrase that we need to check out from here. So I think you learned from the lingo, the checkout lingo from Britive. No, that's
Absolutely.
great. So magic wand obviously could be very dangerous. But if you give me that magic wand, I would say the enterprises and the organizations and the SMBs, basically, not only enterprises, they all need to think about how can I eliminate the standing access everywhere. That's the one thing that you need to be worried about. And it's important that you have this as part of your DNA, right? So if you give me this magic wand, I would actually go back and change that DNA, because just 2 days ago, I was talking to a very mature customer and they were discussing about the vaulting based solution. They were still sort of hung up on this vault idea. So that's another thing I want to eliminate from their mind, that you don't need vault to protect your critical assets.
Yeah.
So you need to think about changing the DNA of your organization. You need to go back to your stakeholders. You need to educate and explain. In some cases, I have seen the crawl, walk, and run approach works because every organization is different. But the reality is that these hackers are not following your crawl, walk, and run approach. They are actually way faster than you are, right? So in some cases, if you have a critical system that you need to protect, you already know what's happening around those resources. You need to take some drastic measures. You cannot wait for crawl, walk, and run. You need to look at your organization, what critical resources that you need to protect to begin with. Maybe that's the place you need to start, and then slowly roll it out to your other workforce, your contractors. They're also logging into your systems. Your offshore resources, they're also logging into some systems, right? So you need to create this map, and we can actually help you because we have done it for a number of customers. We can get you there where you can actually very quickly achieve the results, because the solution itself is actually delivered from the SaaS. It's an API-based solution. It's a very fast, agile solution with a very large scale that it can support, right? So don't, bog yourself or box yourself into the on-premise solutions. Don't limit your thought process into a centralized solution in a proxy-based solution or an agent-based solution. Think about what's happening around you. Talk to your CISOs, talk to, your peers and leaders. And then again, I would say it again. I know we have said it a number of times. Eliminate standing access anywhere. Just-in-time access is what you need. And that is going to change the game for you, and you will protect your crown jewels very quickly with this approach.
Love it. Love it. I think I love the way you said it, that many enterprises want to take this crawl, walk, run approach, and they want to go slow in a phased approach, but that's not how attackers are moving. They are moving very fast, and reputation is everything. Your trust is very important. You want to protect the IP, you want to stop the breaches, you want to protect the intellectual property. So having a solution which aligned to this modern way of doing permissions, granular permissions management is critical, right? So having that dynamic trust is critical. So thank you, Shahzad. I really appreciate you joining and sharing your wisdom with us. I love that example of how you can extend the same ZSP model to the network and security world. Um, and I think it's single platform, same policy model. I love that approach. So hope to see you back in some other episode talking about some additional things. I know that you work on diverse set of use cases, so would love to have you back. But thanks for sharing your wisdom. Thanks for sharing your advice, lessons learned, and we'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.